Hello, my name is Mike Courier and I'm the Director of Operations for Foodco. Over the last 25 years I've been heavily involved in developing the Foodco software to enable food service operations of all kinds to be able to utilize this information to attack common food and beverage costing problems. Foodco was founded in 1981 by Ron Wilkinson, and I came on board with the company in 1986 where I took my real world food service experience and applied it to the technology industry as it has grown over the last many years. Keep in mind as I take you through the program that Foodco has a lot of flexibility in designing and tailoring it to your specific needs. The major part of the program that is really the user interface to the system is what we call worksheets. And worksheets are really just a list of items for whatever purpose you need them for. So if you build worksheets, you can use them for any purpose you want. And then whether you bring the information back into Foodco or not is really your decision, depending on what the task is. So here's a list of the produce items. Now this can be built shelf to sheet so that you can expedite your inventory process and know where things are supposed to be. Within here you can add items, you can add titles, you can move items up and down to rearrange it in the order that you want. Once the worksheet's been built, you basically would just highlight the worksheet. If I wanted to take physical inventory or have a little form printed out, I can click on the print button. And when you're printing reports within Foodco, you can name your own reports, and then you can set the options over here on the right to whatever settings you would like. So if I'm doing an inventory entry sheet, all of our reports will come up on screen. From that point you can print them, and this worksheet, so it would tell you what the case cost is, how many cases of 5-pound jars do you have, and how many pounds do you have. They record those counts on the worksheet. Once you've taken the physical inventory, you would just come in, highlight the worksheet, and you click on inventory. When you're entering in cases and parts, you could enter in 1.5 cases, you could enter in 3 pounds, a combination of both. Once I have the numbers entered, the next step would be to verify it, and you can go up to the print button, say verify the worksheet, and then so it's going to tell you what you recorded and then give you an extension for the value of that product. At the end of the worksheet, it'll actually give you a grand total for the worksheet. We can also get location totals as well. You can also print a summary, which is going to be by framework, so it's going to roll it up as far as department, category, and group, giving you all the grand totals. When you're satisfied with the numbers, you would click on post, but you would just say post the worksheet, are you ready? Ask for the date of the transaction. You answer okay, and it would post the counts and consolidate any duplicate items on the worksheet, so that you have a grand total of the inventory values. Continuing on with the produce vendor, you can enter in bids, and when you enter in a bid, you can select your vendor. When you're assigning vendor bids, these items aren't assigned, but when you assign the product to it, you can enter in the bid price, the bid date, and the bid expiration date, and then you can also enter in the product number for that vendor. As you get historical bids on an item, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen we have a bar graph here, which will show you the trends of that item on prices going up or going down. For ordering purposes, here's the vendors that have been selected for it, and here's all the different places they can get the garlic peeled and all of the product numbers. We also have a place for the preferred vendor, so that if you have central purchasing, they can set the preferred vendor, and then you can just tell the unit operators to order from the preferred vendor after the purchasing decisions have been made. Down at the bottom, if you want to say who to buy from, again, you can go preferred or whoever's cheapest, and then you can just click on assign vendors, and it will go through all the bids within the system and assign the appropriate vendor automatically. At that point, if I can enter in my quantities, and if I had par levels, I could also do the assign orders, and it would build it to your par level to automate that process. Okay, once you've generated the order, you can click on post, and if I had multiple vendors that I was ordering from, I could select which ones I was ready to post, and then I'd answer OK. At that point, it's going to generate the purchase order, and this particular system is set up to go directly to the printer, but what I'll do is I'll jump over to our voucher section, because what happens is when you post a purchase order, it creates a receiving document so that you can reconcile it after the fact that the product's been delivered. I'll just go ahead and click on print here, and I'll just pull that up. So here's what a purchase order would look like. And again, you can adjust the options, have it formatted in the way you want it. It's going to tell you the vendor information. It's also going to have the delivery information, the invoice date, delivery date, and then which items you ordered and the quantity and the price, so that you can compare this with the purchase order. If you want to fax it to them, you can just print out a copy and fax it. You can also do a save as and save it to a PDF file, which a lot of people will do. And then obviously you'll have one at the receiving dock so that they can keep organized and know what's supposed to be delivered. When they do that, it saves a huge amount of time in catching the mistakes at the time of delivery, rather than waiting till the product's supposed to be produced and say, oh, where's our chicken breasts? Maybe you ordered 5 and they only delivered 1. If you catch that at the back door, then it gives you ample time to manage that situation and make sure that you get that product in. Once the product's been received, you would enter in the invoice number. You would verify the invoice amount. You would make any adjustments on the number of cases received and or changes on the case price. If they tell me it's $11, that's what I'm going to pay, and I'll short pay the invoice so that I don't have the vendor working off of my money. Within the voucher, you can also put in any notes for any damaged goods or any special notes that you need to put in there if you short pay, the reasons why, the payment information, any discounts that may apply, the vendor information, and then we have credits if you need to have a printed credit so you can keep a folder to make sure that you're actually getting those credits back. Once you have the remaining balance of 0, and you'll see that the GL is associated to it, what you would do is you would post the invoice, and then that would create the purchase transactions. Within the vendor maintenance section, you have some send options where you can automate this process, so you can actually come out, select the export file name, and we have a number of different formats to choose from on that. So you can automate the process. This is where they actually selected the report criteria to print by. You can also put in notes on the vendor for authorization, signature lines, or no deliveries between these hours, so on and so forth. I'd like to talk about our import module, because a lot of what we talked about can be automated, whether it's doing a physical inventory and you want to use a PDA device, or we can take those files and we can import them into the system. We can also import the sales, vendor bids, so on and so forth. So if I'm writing an interface, and these are all user definable, so when you go to add an import, you can copy the existing one. Then I can just give it a name. We have sales, vendor bids, worksheets, importing invoices, meal counts. We would have the file here. We have a number of different formats that you can select from. Where's the data start, what profit center, what vendor we're interfacing to, some options here. And then once we have the information up, we can just highlight it and cross-reference the values. If we know that this is the price, we can cross-reference that. And then at that point, we just go, we can verify all the information, answer done, and then answer yes. When you want to run that import, basically you can make these visible from the import drop-down menu, or you highlight the interface, you say run now, answer OK. It asks you for the bid date, the expiration date, and we just imported 612 items. Now, with that being said, we have a log of last run, which will tell you everything that was updated in the database, and it will show you what the old cost was versus the new cost, and you can print that out if you want. We also have a warning of last run, which will tell you any product numbers that were in the file that are not in Foodco, which will quickly identify new items they've added to your order guide, or they've changed product numbers on a product, so that you can be ahead of the curve, because most vendors will not provide you product number changes. And then we have a few other tabs for the definition information. All your interfaces are very quick. You click on them, you say run import, and it's done. We've processed all our information. At the end of the week, what would happen is that you would have an accounting period, or I don't know if you do monthly or what you do, but most operations I work with do weekly inventories, and they do weekly accounting periods. Once they are done entering in all their purchases, their sales transactions, and their inventory, then we would come in and we'd click on calculate the period. I've already done that, which is going to calculate a huge amount of information from the standpoint of, so if I'm looking at Coke Classic bag in a box, I can double click on that. I can see what my inventory purchases beginning, what my purchase dollars were, my theoretical versus actual usage. Now, you can have that information on the screen at any time, but when we start talking about reports, we can go into inventory reports, and then we have an inventory extension, which is just an extension of the ending values. You have an actual usage report, which you can sort by framework, or you can actually sort it by usage, so that you can look at your top usage items at a glance and know that's where you need to focus your purchasing efforts to have the highest impact. We have an increase-decrease warning report, which will give you a notification of any items that have gone up or down in price for any date range. The cost of goods report is one of my favorite reports from the standpoint that if you're running a tight ship, that's going to give you an overall analysis of what's going on what your theoretical usage was in dollars, and then what your actual cost was, and give you the percentages. Then it's going to tell you the variances and any non-recipe item costs associated and total variance. And then we can look down the list and see where our total variances are. And this number, this one's 13.12% away from theoretical versus actual. So we had a theoretical cost of $29,000, but they're actually running at $42,000, almost $43,000. So we have a total of 13.12% variance, which is really a benchmark as to how much you can reduce your food cost. Now, but then it breaks it out based on each department, whether it's food costs, soft drinks, liquor, other reports that you have available. If you do have large variances, then you can drop down into the theoretical versus actual, which is basically the same report, except it's taking it to the item level. We actually allow you to set in a minimum cost difference, and then you can select your period, and then it will only report on the items that you have more than the specified variance amount. Then you can look at your dollars and then determine what corrective action you need to make, whether it's a yielding issue, whether it's a purchasing issue, over portioning. We're just going to tell you where the dollars are at, and then you can kind of figure out where you need to go from there. Other reports that we have, the perpetual versus actual, data file cost detail. When it comes to recipe reports, we have a number of different reports. A profit contribution report will tell you what your most profitable items are and where they're ranked with the sales mix, so that you can train your servers to suggestively sell the items that are going to make you the most money. The group sales report, in here we have a menu matrix to where we can actually identify the items that are high volume, high profit, low volume, high profit, low profit, low volume. There are many other reports in the program, including ordering reports for all of your financial accounting, for your accounts payable, accounts receivable, pricing stability, all of your receiving information. The outstanding PO report will give you a listing of any purchase orders that have not been posted through the receiving module. The daily purchase record report is a journal entry sheet for accounts payable to enter in the receiving voucher information that has been collected inside of Foodco, and then simply mark the vouchers as being exported so that there is no duplicate reporting to accounting, to eliminate the chance of paying an invoice more than once. The receiving detail report is basically a printout of all of the vouchers or invoices that you've entered into the system. It will provide the detail information or just summary if you'd like. The receiving detail report will give you a detailed report for a specific list of items for any date range, showing you all purchases or transactions that have occurred for those items that are being reported on. This report is excellent for when you're going to participate in a food show and making commitments to large purchase volumes. The meal planner reports applies to an institutional or cafeteria environment for meal forecasting and production information. This module is generally not used for retail operations.